There is a moment in the growth of almost every business where the founder starts to feel like the business is moving slower than it should given everything that is being put into it. The activity level is high, the team is working, the clients are being served, and yet there is a persistent sense that things are taking longer than they should, that decisions are getting backed up, that the momentum that felt effortless at a smaller scale has become something that requires constant pushing to maintain. I had this feeling for a long time before I understood what was causing it. My instinct was to look at the obvious places. Which process was the slowest? Which person was most overloaded? Which step in the workflow was creating the most visible friction? I optimized those things and the feeling persisted, because the bottleneck was not in any of the places I was looking. The hidden bottleneck in most growing businesses is not a process or a person or a system. It is a routing problem. Specifically, the fact that every significant decision in the business still routes through the founder regardless of how many people or processes exist around that decision. The founder is the final checkpoint on every judgment call that matters. And that routing, invisible on any process map, is the constraint that determines the speed of everything else. Every growing business has a bottleneck. Most founders spend significant time and energy trying to identify it by looking at the obvious places: the slowest process, the most overloaded team member, the step that creates the most visible backlog. But the hidden bottleneck in most growing businesses is not in any of those places. It is in the decision-making layer, specifically in the fact that every significant decision in the business still routes through the founder. That routing is invisible on any process map, but it is the constraint that determines the speed of everything else. The reason the decision routing bottleneck is so hard to see is that it does not look like a bottleneck from the outside. The founder is present and engaged and responsive. Decisions are getting made. Things are moving forward. What is invisible is the queue of decisions waiting for the founder's attention at any given moment, and the cumulative delay that queue creates across every part of the business that depends on those decisions to proceed. There is a specific growth pattern that almost every service business follows. In the early stages, growth feels energizing. More clients, more revenue, more momentum. Then, at a certain point, growth starts feeling heavy. The same increase in client load that used to feel manageable starts feeling like it is outpacing the business's ability to absorb it. That transition point is called the founder bandwidth ceiling. It is the moment when the business has grown past the capacity of one person to hold all of its complexity in their head and make all of its decisions with the quality and speed the business requires. Most founders respond to hitting the bandwidth ceiling by trying to work more efficiently within it. Better prioritization, faster responses, smarter delegation of tasks. Those things help temporarily, but they do not raise the ceiling. The ceiling is not a function of the founder's efficiency. It is a function of the architecture. Specifically, the fact that the architecture was built to centralize decision-making in one place, and that centralization does not scale regardless of how capable the person at the center is. Most founders try to solve the hidden bottleneck by working faster. More hours, better time management, smarter prioritization. Those things help at the margins, but they do not address the structural problem. The structural problem is not that the founder is working too slowly. It is that the business was designed to route all of its intelligence through one person, and that design cannot scale regardless of how capable or efficient that person is. The fix is not working faster inside the bottleneck. It is redesigning the system so the bottleneck no longer exists. Redesigning the decision routing requires identifying which decisions are actually founder decisions and which decisions are being routed to the founder by default because no one else has been given the authority or the framework to make them. In most businesses, the second category is significantly larger than the first. There are genuinely strategic decisions that require the founder's judgment. And then there are hundreds of smaller operational decisions that route to the founder not because they require the founder's wisdom, but because no one ever documented what the right answer looks like or gave someone else the authority to make it. I went through the exercise of categorizing every recurring decision in my business by whether it genuinely required my judgment or whether it was routing to me by default. The results were clarifying. The genuinely founder decisions were a small fraction of what I was actually deciding every week. The majority were operational decisions that had landed on my desk because of organizational habit rather than genuine necessity. Documenting the right answer for each of those decisions and distributing the authority to make them did not just reduce my decision load. It sped up the business in a way that felt almost immediate because all of the queued decisions that had been waiting for my availability could suddenly be made at the point of need rather than at the point of founder availability. The hidden bottleneck is always flattering in a specific way. It feels like evidence that you are indispensable, that your judgment is so critical to the business that nothing significant can happen without you. And there is some truth in that during the early stages. But at a certain point, the indispensability that felt like a strength becomes the constraint that prevents the business from growing past the founder's personal bandwidth. The thing that made you valuable in year one becomes the thing that limits the business in year four. Removing yourself from the bottleneck does not mean removing yourself from the business. It means removing yourself from the decisions that do not actually need you, keeping your involvement concentrated on the decisions that do, and building the structures that allow everyone else to operate at full speed without waiting for your availability to proceed. The hidden bottleneck in every growing business is not hidden because it is hard to find. It is hidden because it is flattering, and flattering constraints are the hardest ones to dismantle. Next, we are going to look at something that catches almost every founder who brings in help for the first time. Why hiring slows you down before it speeds you up, and what determines whether the slowdown is temporary or permanent. I will see you tomorrow.